Hello everyone, we're going to get started on a tutorial on how you can do red light, green light in Hypixel housing. Before I get started, I want to let everyone know that the number one, yes, I'm calling it that now, the number one housing Discord, Housing Hub, is your go-to place for everything housing. I might be doing events there. You can get help with your own houses. You can get help from other people, whatever. Link in the description. Please go check it out. I am trying to grow it. Now, let's get started. So, this is what you're going to end up getting after this tutorial. We have a start area here, the actual game where you're running to their side, and then a finish over there. So let's go and stand in the start area, and in a few seconds the light will change to red, so obviously we shouldn't move. Now it's green, we can run, and there we go, red light, don't move, run, and we're at the end, so we're safe. So now we can move around and there's no issues. But if I were to move around during a red light, as you can see, it sends me back to the start. Now what I'm showing you in this video is just the base concept. Obviously you're going to want to change this to your own house. And because I don't know how you want it to work in your house, I can't show you everything. I'm just showing you the idea. So now I have it all coded here, and I am just going to go through and show you how it works. However, I'm not going to show you in housing, I'm going to show you in HTSL, which is a language that lets you convert actions and conditionals to Hypixel. So for example, we have a variable change here. We change the variable amount moved. We set it to 0. That's the exact same thing that we do here. We set the amount moved to 0. So everything that I show you, text-based, which will be easier for me to explain and show you, can just be converted to the in-game relatively easily. I have a tutorial on HTSL. As at the moment, I don't have a very updated one, but it still works. I'll also leave a link down in the description to more information about HTSL. You don't need it for this tutorial. It's just going to be how I explain how it works. So for starters, we need to detect when the player moves in this region. That way we can tell if they moved, if the light is red, then they should die or be sent back to spawn or whatever you want to do. So here's how that works. What I did was I created a function. I just called it move detection, and it triggers every 4 ticks. So now the actual code for it is in here. So first we have a conditional that checks if the player stat or player variable, sorry, I'm still getting used to the new stuff, variable last x is equal to player.block.x. And this is a placeholder. If we go in game and do /placeholders, you can see a whole list of placeholders that we can use. These placeholders, the x, y, and z, just return the player's location, specifically their block location on the x, y, and z. If you're curious why I'm not using position, it's because position is extremely accurate, and if we want to give the player some leg room to move when it becomes a red light, just the block is just better for this. Okay, so what we do here is we check if the player stat last x, last y, and last z are all equal to the block z, y, and x positions. If it is, that means the player has not moved. If they're all the same, they haven't moved, because otherwise we update it. So we say last x set to the player's block x, the player's y, the player's block z. Hopefully that makes sense. Basically, if the player hasn't moved, then we'll just exit out, meaning the rest of the code will run, and we'll set a variable amount moved to 0. This variable is just to give the player some leg room. Again, I'm going to be saying that a lot, because if the server lags or if the player lags, then they might not move, but they still might get kicked off. So then, once we update all the stats, assuming that they have moved, then we'll run the conditional down here that checks if the amount moved is greater than 0. So in reality, they have to move a slight bit before they can actually get kicked. And trust me, this is worth it. We'll also check if they're in the region game region, and I set this area to the region game region. It is just a region created in here. And then we also check if the global variable light is equal to ANSI. Now this is used later in the light timer, which switches it from green and red. Just know that we will showcase this later, but the global variable light will be ANSI when it is red, and that's a color code. Now assuming all these conditions are met, so they've moved, they are in the game region, and the light is red, then we'll just teleport them to house spawn. Ignore this here. All you really need is to teleport them to house spawn. And obviously you can change this to maybe remove a stat when they die. It doesn't matter. This is the code that runs when the player dies. Okay, so now we accurately check when the player has moved. And you can see on the scoreboard, when I move, the stat goes up. And if I move in here while it's red, which you can see by the scoreboard, I get teleported back here. Now for actually changing the light, we have another function here called light timer. And if I go inside it, it also has an automatic execution of 4 ticks. I'm going to go inside that function in HTSL and you will see it here. We have a conditional that checks if a global variable that we're calling light timer is greater than date.unix. Date.unix is a placeholder that returns a super big number. I think it returns a super big number. This is the time since like January 1st, 1970 or something like that. But basically we're using it to track how many seconds have gone by. So if the light timer variable is greater than the current amount of time, that means the timer is not ready yet, so we're going to exit. However, if our real world time has caught up to our timer, then we're going to go down here and we're going to set our light timer to date.unix and then just add a random number between 2 and 7. I know it does say 8, it is 7. It is inclusive and exclusive, which means we're picking a random number between 2 and 7. So just to refresh, we're going to set light timer to our current time, and then we're going to increase it by 2 to 7 seconds, and this will determine when our light changes. This was all really confusing. It's really hard for me to explain this. Hopefully you guys get it. We're basically using our current time and setting the next light to a future time. I don't really know the best way to explain this. Hopefully you understand that. If not, I'm going to be honest, all of you guys just copy the code anyway, so I guess it doesn't really matter. But then down here, we also change the light code. So this is where we set our light. So this is where we check if our light is equal to ANC, which means it's red. We set it to green, and then we trigger the light broadcast function, true for all players. And then otherwise, it's not red, so we'll set it to red and trigger the same function. Now that light broadcast function is just literally just another function, and I'll go into that code right now. What we do here is we check to just make sure they are in the game start, game region, or game finish regions. We have an OR here. That in housing is just turning on the match any condition. So if we are in any of the regions, we'll continue the code. Otherwise, we will exit. And then here we check if the light is red, then we'll set our amount move to 0 just to refresh it. And it'll send a title for the red light, don't move. And then otherwise the green light, and we'll just say run. And honestly, that's really it. You have a working Squid Game. Obviously, you might want to just spice it up a bit. Maybe add some sounds, make the titles look better. I don't know, add an action bar. That's up to you, really. Make it longer. I don't know. But that's the base system right here. Hopefully you guys make some cool houses with this mechanic. I think it's actually really cool. I think it actually is a really cool mechanic. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Hopefully you understood that. I know it's kind of complex. I definitely don't recommend doing this tutorial if you've never touched housing before. Once again, join the Housing Hub Discord for help if you need it. And yeah, looking forward to see what you guys do with this.